I wasn't going to shoot this movie in digital. I was going to shoot it in film. And at the last minute, I said, we should probably just test it. And so we took a black car in the rain. It happened to be raining one night in Los Angeles. So we took a 1933 Buick and dressed some people up in the clothes and put them against a wall and shot them with film and shot them with digital as a last minute check to make sure I wanted to shoot film. And when I saw the two results, it was the film looked like a period film, and the digital looked like you could reach out and touch the car, like it was right now, And so it was hands down, okay, we have to shoot digital. So that's how we came to shoot digital on this. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
About the word.
What?
The idea about the word, taking us into the world with
the world.
Word.
Oh, the world. You take the weapons with live ammunition and you go out and start shooting them. And what do they feel like? What do they sound like? What's the recoil? And you base everything on that. If you took apart the Museum of Modern Art has a BMW camshaft in it. So parts of machinery sometimes are works of art. If you take apart a Thompson and you look at the engineering that went into it, and it's solid billets of steel. It's very expensive to do, very antique process, but beautiful form. And you see the ingenuity in it. You start to appreciate it. But when you actually fire it, and you hear what it sounds like, and you that you want to emulate the real thing. And so it starts there, and then we figure out how to do that with sound and everything else. Does that answer your question? Or you seek to bring the actors into a real experience. That's what I like to do. And so when Christian Bale was firing, he learned how to fire it. Johnny learned how to break it down. He became fascinated with what it looked like. You drive the car. We all drive cars. We drive cars in 2009. You drive a 1933 Pierce Arrow, Purvis's car, and it feels so different. And for a moment, when you're driving the car, and it doesn't have, it's got, it doesn't have independent suspension, it doesn't have a synchromesh transmission, and you have to be very careful how you shift gears, but it's beautifully put together, but it's so limited, it's so antique, and yet so well done. For a brief moment while you're driving the car, you imagine yourself in 1933, 1934. So then you get ideas about, well, how am I going to make that be real in cinema? So everything flows from that. Oftentimes people will use a story because it has a resonance with the present. And it's certainly the case with Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde were not the romantic figures in a movie I love. I really love Bonnie. I remember the dad song. I love the movie. But that's legend. They weren't that at all. I've been interested in the 1930s for a long time. There's also a project that takes place in Paris and in Spain during the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s. And my parents lived in the 1930s, so I heard stories about the Depression, about how hard it was. And this picture takes place in the depths of the Depression. So the themes of transition, everything, the world changing around you, life becoming truly desperate, are things this world that I know and I like. It's almost as if the 20th century really was born in the 30s in the heart of the Depression. Everything we know about the 20th century, the big dynamic forces all had origin in the 30s. So that's why I was interested in the story. It wasn't to comment on what's happening now. What he had on his mind, it was the most important to me. And we talked earlier on about fate, and I imagined myself sitting in the Biograph Theater on July 22nd. I'm John Dillinger, and I look up on the screen, and I see Clark Gable. And Clark Gable, his character is built a little bit on John Dillinger was the biggest headline in America. In 3 days, any newspaper, say the Chicago American, if you looked at any week in May, June, July of 1934, John Dillinger is a headline 2 days a week. So he's the biggest news American. And there he is sitting in the theater. And Hollywood had copied the legend that he had created while he was still alive. So Clark Gable is doing, in his attitude, John Dillinger. So John Dillinger is seeing Clark Gable do John Dillinger. And and that makes me ask myself, what's John Dillinger thinking when he sees this? And what issues come to his mind when he hears Clark Gable say, forget notions of living forever, or extending this existence of yours. Die the way you live. All of a sudden, living any other way doesn't mean a thing. And if I'm John Dillinger and I'm the biggest target in America and everybody's coming for me, and I don't know that 100 feet from where I'm sitting, there's 13 FBI waiting to assassinate me, what am I thinking? What feelings are going through my mind? And so, that became, again, the point of that scene and the point at the end of the movie. And to me, it would have made the movie smaller if there was overt dialogue about that. If John Dillinger answered Clark Gable, or if I broke into a voiceover and he was saying in dialogue exactly what I just said. So I'm trying to find ways to have you imagine what he might be thinking, or experience what he's thinking, or through suggestion or association, but not be literal in text. So the main advantage to me of digital is that the spectrum of what I can do with the visual image is 8 or 9 times bigger than with film. With film, I'm limited to how light hits some chemicals, and what happens with the molecules happens with the molecules, that's it. With digital, I can change everything on every shot, so it's much more painterly. Okay? It does have one quality, which is its reproduction of detail. But I could also make digital look exactly like film, and you wouldn't know the difference. So it's all elective. So for directors who pre-visualize, digital is a great tool. That's not to say I wouldn't do something and I wanted the quality of photochemical. Okay, I wanted to go back to the one question ago, and there's something I left out. When Dillinger's sitting in that theater, the question in my mind is, does he have the sense that we know that he's obsolescent? Does he get it that, my time's up? And if he does, what's that tough attitude? Because he's not a sentimental kind of man who would feel sorry for himself. These guys are tough in ways we can't even imagine. And I thought that when just the expression on his face when he leaves the cinema and is on the sidewalk. And when Johnny and I talked about it, I said it's liberating. And it's definite and it's liberating. Your time is up, and that's the attitude I wanted him to have as he walked out of the cinema and had to hit the sidewalk. So that was the end. That was the rest of the answer to that question.